Të dashur miq të nderuar teleshikues të televizionit Koha, kudo që ndodheni, mirëmbrëma. Sot kemi një bisedë ekskluzive telefonike, të cilën televizioni Koha ka zhvilluar me ish senatorin amerikan DioGuardi, përndryshe veprimtarin e njohur shqiptar, i cili ka lobuar vite me radhë në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës për çështje shqiptare. 25 vjet ky personalitet punoi për avansimin e çështjes shqiptare, kontriboi për Kosovën, Luginën e Preshevës, Shqipërinë dhe Republikën e Maqedonisë. Me iniciativë të shoqatave shqiptare amerikane, me selinë në Chicago, televizioni Koha arriti që të zhvillojë një bisedë pra ekskluzive, të cilën do t'ju përcjellim në vazhdim. Zoti DioGuardi, mirëmbrëma. Unë pa humbur kodët kisha filluar me pyetjet nga redaksia e televizionit Koha. A mund të na thoni se si Washingtoni zyrtar e shes situatën e fundit, eskalimin e situatës së fundit në Republikën e Maqedonisë? Duke u ditur se qeveria e Republikës së Maqedonisë kohëve të fundit po sulmon shqiptarët me ta ashtu quajtur radikalizëm islamik. A mund të na thoni se kjo është një tentim i kësaj qeverie për të prishur marrëdhëniet e mira që kanë shqiptarët me Washingtonin zyrtar?
Well, you know, we have to learn from the past. What did Slobodan Milosevic do? The same thing. He was trying to paint a picture of these very moderate, secular Albanian Muslims, just like the ones in Turkey, as fundamentalists because the issue of 9/11 came up, and obviously the Serbs and the Slavs were trying to make the United States feel that the Albanian people are not their friends. When we know that the most pro-American, pro-US people in the Balkans are the Albanian people. Now, that's because our lobby, Liga Qytetare Shqiptare Amerikan, the Albanian American Civic League, succeeded from 1985 to tell Washington and the world about who the Albanian people really are. That religion is not their number one way of defining themselves. Their number one way is to define themselves as Albanian. And then you have secular Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Catholics. You have 200,000 Catholics in Kosovo. We have a church in the name of Mother Teresa now in Pristina. I just met with Bishop DioGuardi. We are helping him raise the money to open that church next year. But already it's built, but it needs to be completed. And you even have Jewish people from 2,000 years in the Albanian land. So this is the story that Shirley and I, my wife Shirley Coys and I, are telling the world about the Albanian people, and you will see it on our website. But it's obvious that the Slavic government in Skopje is trying to poison the image of the Albanian people like they did in 2002 when they killed innocent Pakistanis just coming across the border because they were able, because of the free transfer of visas in Macedonia, they wanted to get jobs in other places. In order to please the United States to show that they were fighting Islamic terrorism, they shot these innocent Pakistanis in cold blood to make it look like they're fighting the world, they're fighting terrorism in the world to make themselves look good. This is 2002. Since that time, we know that they have confessed they did the wrong thing. They're paying these families in Pakistan. But this was also to make the Albanian people look bad, because they portrayed it in 2002 like these Islamic fundamentalists, and maybe they were from Pakistan, were working with the Albanians in Macedonia. But now we have discovered that that was a lie. In fact, this is still going into the courts right now. It has not yet been finalized. But we should not be surprised at what this Slavic government is doing, Borevski's government, Zemero, because this is an ultra-nationalist government, just like Milosevic's government in Kosovo. And we know what they did to kill hundreds of thousands of people in Bosnia, especially Srebrenica. And they almost did it in Kosovo if it weren't for this league and lobby that I set up to get President Bush and others, and the first President Bush, to understand that Slobodan Milosevic was the problem. That he was looking for greater Serbia, but he's blaming Albanians for looking for greater Albania. But they're always using this Muslim thing to hurt the image of the Albanian people because of the radicalism that does exist, maybe in Saudi Arabia and in other places, but does not exist in the Balkans, certainly not among the Albanian people. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't one or two bad people like this guy in Norway that just took it upon himself to act like a Nazi and kill 60, 70 people. That doesn't mean the government of Norway did it. It was that individual. Well, you may have some crazy Albanians that decide they want to do something stupid, but you can't blame the Albanian people for that. But on the other hand, what Milosevic did was sponsored by the government. This was terror sponsored by the government of Serbia against the Albanian people. And the Macedonian Slavs have learned from Milosevic, and they're using the same thing. But we know the history of the Slavs in Macedonia. First, they tried to assimilate the Orthodox Albanians by taking control of the Orthodox Church in Macedonia. Then they took control of the Albanian Catholicism. And the Diocese of Skopje, which was usually connected to the Diocese of Prizren, was separated in the year 2000. And now they're trying the ultimate race card, which is to make Albanians look like Muslim terrorists, which they are not. So we know the orientation, the strategy of the Slavic government. And we have to fight that with public relations and with good lobbying, which is what I'm doing in America. But Albanians in Macedonia have a problem like they have in Kosovo and in Albania. You have politicians who are more interested in money and getting reelected and building their parties than they are in helping the Albanian people and the national cause of the Albanian nation of 7 million Albanians in the Balkans. And this is what our lobby stands for, to project this beautiful nation of 7 million Albanians living side by side, unfairly divided into 6 different political jurisdictions, and that's Western Macedonia, Southeast Montenegro, Southern Serbia, place called Preševa, Albania, Kosovo, and Northern Greece and Chamria. They divided us unfairly. And now it is difficult and complicated to explain to the world who we are as a nation. But I have to tell the Albanian people to be proud, like my father was proud to be Albanian, and he spoke Albanian when he came here in 1929 as a poor farm boy from southern Italy. He spoke Albanian and Italian because he comes from the soldiers of George Castriati from 600 years ago. And I'm his oldest son. And when he came here, he knew that there was a history of Albanians in Italy. Didn't know the whole history. I had to learn it when I became a congressman from Albanians here. But what I learned is that Albanians are a nation that has survived countless repression from the Romans, from the Turks, from the Greeks, from the Serbs, from the communists, and they're still standing on their feet. That's how strong the Albanian people are. No one has been able to take away their language. 7 million Albanians speaking the same language, having the same culture, still on their ancestral Illyrian lands, and having the same history. And that's what I am trying to project, because the future of Europe is not going to be with borders. It's going to be who is producing the jobs, who is economically productive, because Europe has to compete against China, against South America, and compete with the United States. So they need to know who is going to be hardworking, productive, and creating the economic prosperity. That's the Albanian people. And they got to work together. They got to forget these borders. These borders should mean nothing to them. And now, in dealing with the Macedonian government, they need to get the people together with good information to stand up and speak for themselves, to work with my lobby, our lobby, here in the United States, because our lobby has been very successful. Without the Albanian American Civic League, there would be no independent Kosovo today. It was a Republican, President George Bush, the second George Bush, who recognized it on February 17, 2008, after I delivered, through Congressman Hyde and Lantos, 1 million signatures from Kosovo to the White House. So I just want to say that we need to have a strategy now, and I cannot trust the Albanian politicians. Since the war we had after Tanusha, I tried to work with them. They never returned my calls. They became part of the government, and now they became a coalition with the Macedonian Slavs and Vemero, and they're not doing the job for the Albanian people. So the Albanian people of Titova, Kostova, Kumnova, Chafa have to wake up, and they have to now go on the streets, and they have to show the world that they understand democracy, just like we saw in Egypt and Tunisia and Libya, and that they want to have their equality. And since the Oakwood Agreement is not being implemented, and I know Arvin Jafari tried very hard, I worked with him. I brought him here in 1995 to testify in front of Congress. And since it's not being done, now we need a new solution. And maybe the solution is what I came to Macedonia and visited with the Albanians in Gostova and Shkup and Titova in 1992, when I was invited for the referendum on autonomy, and I brought the Wall Street Journal and the Free Congress Foundation to monitor the referendum on political and cultural autonomy for the almost 1 million Albanians in Macedonia. Maybe now we have to go back to that solution and create a federation, because I can see that Macedonia today is an apartheid state. The Slavs do not live with the Albanians. The Albanians do not live with the Slavs. The Slavs do not respect the Albanians. The Albanians do not trust the Slavs. So it's time to make Macedonia a state that is successful by now coming up with a federation and allowing the Albanians to administer their own education and other things. Sure, you need a centralized government for the army and whatnot, but Albanians now need their own autonomy.
Në vazhdën e këtyre ngjarjeve, zoti DioGuardi, në Maqedoni javën e fundit janë mbajtur disa protesta të këta të cilët janë zhvilluar në Shkup, në Tetov, në Kumanov, Gostivar dhe në disa qytetet e tjera, ku shqiptarët kanë marrë pjesë dhe kanë mbrojtur parulla edhe kombëtare, por edhe fetare. Në këto protesta ka pasur gjithashtu edhe flamuj kombëtar, por edhe flamuj fetar. A mund të na thoni se cili është mendimi juaj për këto protesta dhe gjithashtu në këtë konotacion si këta proteste janë vlerësuar nga Washingtoni zyrtar dhe nga mediumet në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës?
My opinion is, and I am reading all the stories, so I'm up to date. My wife and I work very hard to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the Albanian world and the Balkans. So I am informed. My opinion is that the Macedonian Slav government may be very clever here to kind of induce or kind of get Islamic fundamentalists, and I don't know who they are, they may not be Albanian even, but to put them in these demonstrations in order to make the Albanian people look like they have no legitimacy as a democratic group and as a very, very large minority in Macedonia without their rights. And we need to now fight this by telling the truth. And what's the truth? The truth is that you've got almost 40%, maybe 35%. We don't even know because the census is never monitored by the right international authorities, so we still don't know how many Albanians really exist in Macedonia. But even if it was a third, 33%, look at how many people that are Albanian have jobs in the government. Less than 10%. When I went there in 1992, it was less than 2%. Now, why isn't there better representation from Albanians in the government? Why don't we have the ability to speak the Albanian language as a second language in Macedonia, in all these Albanian villages, and to proudly fly an Albanian national flag as long as they fly it besides a Macedonian flag, like we do here in the United States. So we know that the Ohrid Agreement has not been implemented, and it looks like the Macedonian Slavs have no intention to implement it. They just want to remove the Albanians from their land, the way Milosevic tried to do in Kosovo. And they know that they're not going to get the opportunity to do that because Albanians are not going to leave their land. So they're going to try now to assimilate them, the way the Turks did over 450 years, because all the Albanians who went to Turkey, who were occupied by Turkey in 1488, they were Christian. It was 450 years, or 25 years, 425 years of Turkish Ottoman occupation that coerced them to the Muslim faith. And I have no problem with that. People should believe in God however they profess it. But now this Muslim faith is being used against the Albanians because of the outrageous acts of these Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia that came here to bomb the World Trade Center in 9/11 in 2001. And we have to now be careful that we understand that that's a trick that's being played by all the Slavs and the Greeks with their Orthodox churches to make the Muslims look like infidels, to make them look like they are fundamentalists that are working against democracy. So it's important now for the Albanians to come on the street with their national flag, with the U.S. flag, and they should be yelling out like they did in Kosovo, USA, USA, USA. And they should have the symbol of the Albanian cap, the white caps. Why not? Let the people know they are Albanian. They're not Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia. And make sure that there is no violence. Don't forget how Martin Luther King freed or got the rights for the African Americans here in the United States, starting in 1965 with the Voting Rights Act. He did it through non-violence. If anybody wants to beat you up, let them beat you up. Don't shoot back. Don't fight back, because then they use that against you. And they have an army and they have a state. The Albanians don't have that. So some people will suffer, but it has to be totally non-violent, like Mahatma Gandhi, who took down the English Empire in India through non-violence, through demonstration, and through, we now know, through boycotts. And maybe we need to think about a boycott. If Albanians want to be smart, they got to look at history, the way other people who have been repressed accomplished the goal. But it can only be done through nonviolence. And religion cannot be made an issue. It's got to be human rights. And the human rights of the Albanian people in Macedonia are being violated every day. Their human rights, their civil rights, their political rights, their economic rights. They're being violated every day by the Macedonian government and the Albanian party officials who are now part of that government.
Okay.
They should now not join that government, and they should join with the Albanian people and change things for real in Macedonia.
Kjo situatë, zoti DioGuardi, ka eskaluar pas vrasjes së 5 fish të 5 të rive Macedonas në Shkup. Ka shumë pista hetimesh, por e vërteta asesi ende nuk thuhet. A është kjo një iskenim për të treguar shteti dhe qeveria karshi faktorit ndërkombëtar se në Maqedoni mund të ketë destabilizim nëse ky shtet nuk pranohet në NATO në samitin që vijon tani në Chicago? Dhe a është e qartë se nga ana e ndërkombëtarëve se në samitin e Chicago Maqedonia nuk do të merr ftesë edhe kësaj radhe për antarësim?
Yes, again, another trick. I mean, I've been reading the papers, and among the people arrested was a 60-year-old woman and then a 64-year-old retired carpenter from the village of Oria, I think, was the name. Mm-hmm. And, you know, these are people who cannot be radical Islamists. They don't have the profile. So, you know, this is a trick. You can walk into someone's house and they could have a gun. That doesn't mean that those guns are going to be used against the government. In America, we have many people that have guns in their houses to protect themselves from crime on the street. So we have to advertise, we have to publicize that these people do not have the profile of radical Islamists. And this is a trick by the Macedonian government to poison the image and the good face of the Albanian people.
Zoti DioGuardi, shqiptarët e Maqedonisë janë vërë në një situatë të vështirë, sidomos kohëve të fundit dhe kemi diskriminim të hapur nga ana e shtetit. Marrëveshja e orit thjesht nuk e implementohet deri në fund. Edhe pse garant për këtë janë Basia Evropiane, Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, NATO e tjerë. Pra si lejuan këta faktor që kjo marrëveshje të mos implementohet deri në fund edhe pse ka pasur afate kohore?
It is a shame. The word in Albanian is tort. I know some Albanian. It's a shame that after all this work that Arben Jaferi did with DioGuardi in our league, after bringing him here in 1995, after my wife and I went to Titova to open up the University of Titova, where they killed a student and they were hurting people left and right, the Macedonian Slavs, to avoid giving a good education to the Albanian people, we brought Arben Jaferi and Fadil Suleimani here in Washington. We had a hearing about the Albanian national cause and the demands for human rights, because Arben Jaferi saw the success we were having with Kosovo when we got Tom Lantos and Ben Gilman to introduce the first resolution, 1992, for the independence of Kosovo. Not for autonomy, independence, because we were the first to recognize, our league, that Yugoslavia was going to fall apart. So instead of going for a Kosovo Republic, we went for Parvasia. And that resolution we put in every 2 years from 1992. Arben Jaferi is smart. He saw that. So he came here. He made the case for the Albanians. But he got sick. And his people who took over his party are not following what he did. They're making too many compromises with the Slavs. So today you don't have the Ohrid Agreement implemented. And today you don't have a strong enough voice in Macedonia by the Albanian people, because the Albanian politicians are making too many compromises with the Slavs to keep their positions in Skopje and to build their parties. And I'm hearing from my friends that many of them are getting very, very rich, like the Albanian politicians in Kosovo and in Albania. The people are getting poorer, and their Albanian politicians are getting richer, and they're compromising with the governments, many of them Slav governments, who are just repressing the Albanian people. So after 11 years trying to get the implementation of Ohrid, we now know it's not going to happen. And we now have to try a different strategy. And the strategy should be a federation in order to give the Albanians at least the control of the local villages and cities like Gostavar and Titova, education, and things like that. We've seen this happen in other places. Right now, you have the Dayton Accords in 1995 that made a Bosnian federation. And while it's not working perfectly, at least we know it's an example of what could happen maybe in Macedonia. And I think we have to start thinking about some kind of autonomy for the Albanian people in Macedonia so that they get their full rights. Because the Ohrid Agreement is not being pushed by the Macedonian government, and it's not being promoted by the Albanians the way they should, the way that we did 10 years ago with Arben Jaferi. So we need a new strategy, and the Albanian people of Macedonia have to work with our independent lobby here in the U.S. so that I can get this message to our Congress and our State Department that the Albanian people are fed up with the Macedonian Slav government. They're fed up with their Albanian politicians there, and they need to get on with their lives, build their families, get jobs, have their human rights, have peace in their life, and that's not what's being done right now.
Dhe për fund, zoti DioGuardi, desha t'ju pyes se sa shqiptarët që jetojnë në Amerikë janë të bashkuar dhe janë një atje kur bëhet fjalë për çështjen e shqiptarëve, për zgjidhjen e çështjes të shqiptarëve. Pra një retrospektiv të shkurtër për aktivitetin e shqiptarëve në Amerikë dhe sa ata janë të bashkuar mes vete.
Well, we have done the job that had to be done to get democracy in Albania. Don't forget, I was the first one to be let in by Radmez Alia in 1990, and with Tom Lantos, and we still had communism in Albania, but it was after that trip that the boat left Durrës to go to Brindisi. People went into the embassies, and then finally we had the the election that brought the first democratic government there, which has now turned out to be a very corrupt government, unfortunately, and that has to be dealt with as well. So what I'm saying is that today we can be proud that the work of this lobby got independence for Kosovo. Years ago, people never thought that would happen. But my wife and I had to bring Slobodan Milosevic, get him indicted first by the U.S. Congress, and then we had to get him indicted in The Hague, and then I had to fly there with my wife to testify against him. And my name is the only name he used on the first day. He blamed me, he said, for satanizing him and the Serbian people. But I didn't satanize him. I just publicized what he was doing, the outrageous terrorist acts against the Albanian people. But we got together a lot of Albanians here. But today, Albanians are getting a mixed message from their politicians in Shkup and in Pristina and in Tirana. Because these politicians are building their party. They're not building the human rights and democracy for the Albanian people. So we are not organized the way we should be here in the United States and around the world. And it's very difficult to get our message to all the Albanian Americans and Albanians in Australia and in Europe because of all the propaganda coming from Albanian politicians and their media. And don't forget, these Albanian politicians, they own, some of them, they have a lot of money, the Albanian TV and the Albanian press. I'm not saying that with Koa TV, that may be independent. But I can tell you that in Kosovo, most of the press is owned by wealthy people, and many of them are Albanian politicians who want to stay in office, and they lie about what they're doing. They even lie about what I'm doing. So they confuse the Albanian people around the world. So I am still working very hard, Shumpun, for the Albanian national cause. And we need more and more support from Albanian people all over the world so I can do a better job with my wife, Shirley Cloyes, to give the Albanian nation finally the equal rights, the dignity, the economic prosperity that they need in a democratic, united, and integrated Europe today. Let me just say in the words of Fanoli, because I said this in Pristina, when we went to see Ramiz Ali, it was after we confronted Milosevic's army in front of the Grand Hotel in May 28, 1990. And thousands of Albanians were there being beaten up. And I opened the window on the first floor over the driveway of the Grand Hotel, and I yelled out to the people the words of Fanoli, Mojnand Moski Frikis Sekejemten Amerik. This is what I'm telling now to the Albanian people in Macedonia. Have faith in America. Have faith in what I am doing. Nobody pays me to do it. I'm Arbresh, Baba Im Arbresh, and Unyam Kranat Cheam Chiptar Americano Arbreshi. So people have to understand who I am, who my wife is, by what we have done to help the Albanian people. And they have to continue to tell their families all over the world to support our league by going on the website, www.aacl.us. And then we will do a better job to lobby, to bring the public relations and the U.S. media and the European media the right information about the Albanian people.
Zotë DioGuardi, unë ju falenderoj shumë që ishit sot në bisedë telefonike të drejt për drejt me televizionin Koha. Shpresoj që kjo bisedë jep një kahje si shqiptarëve ashtu edhe subjekteve politike shqiptare kudo që jetojnë. Unë ju falenderoj shumë, ju uroj shëndet, ju uroj që edhe mëtej Liga Shqiptare, qytetare shqiptare amerikane të veproj drejt avancimit të çështjeve shqiptare kudo në botë. Ju falenderit dhe sigurisht se ju uroj mirëseardhje në Tetovën tuaj, në Maqedoninë tuaj, për të bashkëbiseduar drejt për drejt këtu në studion e televizionit Koha përpara qytetarëve dhe shikuesve të televizionit Koha. Ju falenderit dhe përshëndetje nga Tetova gjithë Shteteve të Bashkuara të Amerikës.
Ditën e mirë, mirupafshim.